Froppy and Equestria, written by crossover addict, meeting the pony. She is hurt. We have to help her, cried Fluttershy as she cradled the head of the unconscious little creature. Are you kidding me? Said Rainbow Dash before hovering closer to Fluttershy and pointing our hoof at the unknown creature. We have no idea what this creature is. It could be dangerous. Fluttershy was taken aback by the words of her childhood friend. She felt a bit intimidated by Rainbow Dash, but she quickly regained her resolve after she looked at the injured creature between her hooves. Fluttershy shook her head. No, Rainbow Dash. That is not a good excuse to refuse to help this poor creature, said Fluttershy as she hugged the creature a bit more tightly. Oh, for the love of Twilight, help me out here, said Rainbow Dash while looking at Twilight Sparkle. Twilight Sparkle and the rest of the gang all trotted over to Fluttershy and the unconscious creature. Twilight placed her hoop on her chin and pondered. She looked intently at the unconscious and injured creature. Rainbow Dash is right, said Twilight after letting out an audible sigh. Yes, exclaimed Rainbow Dash, feeling that her argument was sound and just. But whimpered Fluttershy with some tears in her eyes. However, interrupted Twilight with a stern tone in her voice. That doesn't mean that we won't help this creature, added Twilight. Rainbow Dash couldn't help but stare at Twilight with an open mouth. Fluttershy simply let out a sigh of relief as she continued to gently pat the creature's head. We will help this creature, but after taking some safety precautions. We don't know what it will do once it wakes up, said Twilight. Sounds good to me, agreed Applejack. I won't oppose to lending a hoop to an pony or creature whom needs it, said Rarity. She then takes a closer look at the bit. Ugh, especially if it's this creature. Just look at her mane, it's so messy. And her turtleneck body side is muddy and shredded. And, is this blood? Rarity then fainted and was about to hit the ground if Applejack hadn't caught her at the last second. I agree with Twilight. If we help her, then I can throw her the biggest welcome to Ponyville party ever, exclaimed Pinkie Pie. All the gang then looked at Rainbow Dash, waiting for her response. Ugh, fine, said Rainbow Dash reluctantly. But don't say I didn't warn you. Then it's settled, said Twilight before using her telekinetic magic to lift the unconscious Biggs a few feet into the air. Okay, girls. Brace yourselves. Twilight's horn emitted a large flash of light before teleporting her friends and the Biggs out of the streets of Ponyville and into another location. Where am I? Thought Torsui as she slowly opened her eyes. She could feel that she was lying on a bed. An extremely soft bed, softer than anything she had ever laid on. She then looked at her body and noticed two things. First of all of her injuries are covered with bandages. She pressed her finger against some of the bandages to see if the pain was still there. It was still there, but most of it had greatly subsided. Whoever patched me up did a pretty good job, thought Torsui. And the second thing she noticed was that she was naked. The bandages did cover her calf, left shoulder, thighs and forearms. Furthermore, the bandages on her back also covered her breasts. However, the rest of her body was still exposed. Torsui took a deep breath to calm herself down. Well, at least I can still cover myself with a spec sheet, thought Torsui. I just hope no one groped me while I was unconscious. I hope none of them are like Mineta. Torsui cringed after remembering our unpleasant interactions with Mineta. She then looked at her surroundings to try and figure out her whereabouts. She noticed that the floor and ceiling were made out of wood. She also saw many roots protruding from the ceiling, walls and floor. Am I inside a tree? Thought Torsui. The froggy heroine then noticed that there is an assortment of lab equipment in the room. Are they going to experiment on me? Torsui decided, while still covering herself by the bedsheet, to leave the room. Before she could get too far away from the bed, she bumped into something that felt like a wall. An invisible wall. What is this? Torsui touched the invisible wall. After that she knocked on it for a bit. It's hard, but not too hard. I think I can break it, but that might alert my captors, thought Torsui. She then moved a portion of the bedsheet away from her body to glance at her bandages. Or maybe they are my rescuers. On one hand, they did patch me up, but on the other hand, they clearly don't want me to leave this room, thought Torsui before deciding to sit on the bed. As she was sitting on the bed, she noticed a silver tray on the floor to her left. On top of the tray were a pair of apples, a glass of water and a cupcake. Looks like I was too busy observing my surroundings I didn't notice the food, thought Torsui. She grabbed the cupcake and observed it for a bit. Ribbit, uttered Torsui once she saw the phrase "get well soon" written in royal icing on the cupcake. Upstairs, in the ground floor of the Golden Oak Library, sat the Princess of Friendship. She was surrounded by mountains of books and papers, and she was gleefully writing on a long piece of parchment. A few moments later, a short purple dragon entered the ground floor while rubbing his eyes. Twilight, Are you still writing about the creature? Did you even sleep? Said Spike before yawning. How can I sleep, Spike? Said Twilight with a large smile on her face. There isn't a single book about this creature, which means I can be the first pony to ever write about it. Okay, but make sure you get some rest, advised Spike. No need, chuckled Twilight for a bit. I casted a rejuvenation spell on myself. If you say so, said Spike. Oh, Spike, could you head over to the store and buy some bottles of ink? I'm almost out, requested Twilight. What? Seriously? But I just bought some yesterday, exclaimed Spike. Twilight smiled sheepishly as she gestured towards the mountains of papers that had her handwriting all over them. Fine, whined Spike before exiting the library. A few minutes later, after Spike left the library. Knock knock. Oh, they're here, said Twilight as she opened the door via telekinesis. Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy all entered the Golden Oak Library. Hi Twilight, how's the monster? Is she awake? Asked Rainbow Dash with a daring smile on her face. Well, by my calculations, the sleeping spell that I casted on her should have worn off by now, answered Twilight. Sleeping spell? Why'd you cast a sleeping spell on her, Tui? Asked the perplexed Applejack. Because she started to wake up before I could finish studying her, answered Twilight. Oh my! Uttered Fluttershy as she looked at the mountains of papers, books and parchments on the floor. By the way, where is Rarity? Asked Twilight. Ooh, me, I know why she's not here, said Pinkie Pie with her hoop raised as if she was a student trying to answer a question asked by her teacher. Twilight simply sighed and chose to play along with Pinkie Pie's antics by pointing our hoof at her. Before we came here, we decided to go to Rarity's boutique and ask her if she's ready to come with us to meet you, but she said she's busy working on a new outfit for the creature along with patching up the creature's old outfit. But she also said that she's almost finished and that she'll be here soon, explained Pinkie Pie. I guess we can wait for Rarity to get here before meeting the creature, said Twilight. I hope she's okay, her injuries look really nasty, said the sympathetic Fluttershy. Twilight trotted over to Fluttershy and placed her hoop on her friend's shoulder. Don't worry, Fluttershy. I casted the best healing spell I know on her, said Twilight reassuringly. She'll be fine. Oh. Twilight winced and placed her hoop on her horn. Well, you okay there, Sugar Cube? Asked Applejack after rushing over to Twilight and placing her hoop on her shoulder. Don't worry, Applejack. I'm fine. It's just the invisible barrier that I casted around the creature. Whatever happens to the barrier, I can feel it. I made it to keep the creature in one specific location, and if she somehow manages to break through the barrier, I'll know about it immediately, explained Twilight. PFFFT, if she breaks through the barrier, then she'll have to go through me first if she wants to leave the library, scoffed Rainbow Dash while hovering. Anyway, it seems that she was trying to escape by hitting the barrier. I think we should go downstairs and meet her right now, said Twilight. But what about waiting until Rarity gets here? Asked Fluttershy. Sorry, Fluttershy. But I'm afraid the creature doesn't want to wait, retorted Twilight. She then used her telekinesis to grab a quill and a parchment. After that she trotted over to the entrance that leads downstairs. Twilight turned around and looked at her four friends. Okay girls, are you ready to meet the new creature? Asked Twilight with a confident smile. All the girls replied with a nod. Okay then, let's go, said Twilight as she led the way with a smile almost as big as Pinkie Pie's. It's not every day a pony gets a chance to converse with a newly discovered creature. A few minutes earlier, after Tosui ate the apples and cupcake and drank the glass of water, she lied on the bed and stared at the ceiling. She then began to ponder about her current predicament. Maybe I was too hasty when I assumed that I wasn't on Earth just because I saw a couple of talking horses. It is possible that they are people who had quirks that allows them to transform into horses, just like how Yukio can transform into a dragon, thought Tosui to herself. But still, if they are just people who can become horses, why did they call me a monster and run away from me? Were they brainwashed by their town's leaders into adapting isolationism? Were they told throughout their whole life that anything or anyone from the outside world is inherently bad? Pondered Tosui. But if that's the case, then why did they treat my wounds? Are they going to use me for something? What are they going to do to me? Tosui continued to ponder. The more I think about it, the more questions I keep creating for myself. I need answers and I need to figure out exactly where I am, said Tosui to herself. Tosui then noticed a fly flying near the ceiling. Even though I think flies are disgusting, I still have to admit that they taste rather good. I guess that's just my frog quirk squabbling with my human side, thought Tosui before launching her powerful tongue towards the fly. Bam! Oh no, I forgot about the invisible wall, thought Tosui after her mighty tongue slammed into the invisible wall and produced a very loud sound. Tosui then heard someone say "oh" from upstairs. Looks like the quirk also allows them to feel their invisible wall. After a while, Tosui couldn't really hear much of anything, but now she is hearing many footsteps coming from the stairs. I guess my captors or saviors are coming down, said Tosui to herself before getting out of the bed and covering herself with a bedsheet. I just hope I can get some answers from them. Before Tosui stood 5 Equinus. So, those are my captors or saviors. I wonder what the white one is, thought Tosui. I have to stay calm. I can't let them know I'm feeling a bit nervous. Thanks to my frog quirk, it's easy for me to maintain an expressionless face. The orange one and the cyan one seem to be suspicious of me. That pink one's smile is a bit unnerving. Why is she looking at me like that? And the yellow one, she is still looking at me sympathetically. I guess I could count on her to protect me from the rest of them if they decide to harm me, thought Tosui. And last but not least, the one that seems to be the leader of the group, the purple one. She seems to be very excited, but her smile is nowhere near as wide as the pink one's. I think that's a good thing. And, is that a quill and parchment floating next to her? Does she also have the telekinesis quirk? Said Tosui to herself. Twilight Sparkle took a few steps forward and cleared her throat. Here comes the moment of truth, thought Tosui. Hello there, I am Twilight Sparkle, the Princess of Friendship, said Twilight. Tosui simply blinked and gave a blank stare. And these are my friends, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy, said Twilight while pointing our hoof at each of her friends. This is almost as bad as Bakugo's hero name, thought Tosui. What's your name? Asked Twilight with a wide smile and eyes filled with hopes, dreams and a thirst for knowledge. Tosui Asui, replied Tosui. Could you repeat that? Asked Twilight with a sheepish smile. My name is Tosui Asui, repeated Tosui. We? Said Applejack as she tried to comprehend and pronounce Tosui Asui's name. What the hey kind of a name is that? Exclaimed Rainbow Dash with a frown. It's Japanese, replied Tosui. All the ponies, except for Pinkie Pie, who was still keeping our white smile, gave Tosui a very confused look. What intonation is Japanese? Asked Applejack. It is a language that is spoken in the country of Japan, answered Tosui. Just how isolated are these people? Thought Tosui. Have you ever heard of this Japan thing, Tui? Asked Applejack. Afraid not, Applejack. Of all the geographical books that I have read, none of them mentioned anything about a place called Japan, answered Twilight before proceeding to write down what Tosui just said. She claims to have read books about geography and yet she doesn't know what Japan is. Thought Tosui. Twilight? Said Tosui. Twilight abruptly stopped writing on her parchment and looked at Tosui. Yes. Where am I? Asked Tosui. You're in Ponyville, answered Twilight. Tosui blinked a few times. Where is Ponyville? It's in Equestria, answered Twilight. After a moment of silence, Tosui asked another question. Where is Equestria? Before Twilight could respond, she was interrupted by a loud and long laugh. Ha! Laughed Rainbow Dash as she ceased her hovering and proceeded to roll on the floor. Once she settled down a bit, she wiped a tear from her eye and looked at Tosui. You don't know where Equestria is? Are you kidding me? Ha! Are you from another planet or something? Jeered Rainbow Dash. From another planet? Said Pinkie Pie. Gasp, you mean she's an alien? Shouted Pinkie Pie with excitement before she rushed towards Tosui and stuck her face against the invisible barrier that stands between them. Tosui jumped backwards and landed on top of the bed. How did she do that? How did she get this close to me before I could even notice her coming? Her speed quirk must be incredibly fast. Thought Tosui as her heart raced for a bit. Pinkie Pie? You're scaring her. Exclaimed Twilight before using her telekinesis to pull Pinkie Pie away from the invisible barrier. She then trotted over to Rainbow Dash and gave her a stern look. Stop making fun of her, Rainbow Dash. Both Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash lowered their heads in shame. Twilight then trotted a bit closer to the invisible barrier. Sorry about that, Tosui. Some of my friends can be a bit overwhelming, but they're really good ponies once you get to know them, said Twilight. Ponies? Is that what they call themselves? Thought Tosui after she hopped off the bed and landed on the floor. Tui, while I agree that what Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie did was uncalled for, I still find it weird that she doesn't know where Equestria is. You're sure she's okay in the head? Asked Applejack. Of course she is, Applejack. After I treated her wounds, I casted a transparency spell on her to see if she's suffering from any internal injuries. And thanks Celeste she's not, reassured Twilight. Is Celeste their deity? And did she just say spell? Thought Tosui. If she's okay in the head, then why doesn't she know Equestria? Asked Applejack. I'm about to find out, said Twilight. Tosui, what is the name of your species? Why am I feeling nervous all of a sudden? Thought Tosui. Humans, we are called humans, answered Tosui while trying to maintain an expressionless face. Twilight looked at the notes she took during the conversation with Tosui. If my hypothesis is correct, then the reason why Tosui doesn't know Equestria and why there aren't any books about her species is because she's not from our world, said Twilight. So, she's an alien? Asked Rainbow Dash. Tosui, what is your planet called? Asked Twilight. Earth, answered Tosui after a moment of silence. My hypothesis has turned into fact, said Twilight with an excited smile as she continued to write on her parchment. Tosui took a few steps back and sat on her bed. The ponies couldn't tell what Tosui is feeling because of her expressionless face. On the surface, it didn't seem that Tosui cared much for what's going on around her, but deep down she was trying as hard as possible not to panic. She was trying to stay calm and figure out a way to return home to her friends, and most importantly, to her family. Twilight, I heard you say the word spell. Does magic exist in your world? Asked Tosui. Yes, it does, answered Twilight. Then, can you send me back to my world? Asked Tosui. Well, said Twilight while scratching the back of her head, interdimensional travel is extremely difficult and no pony in the history of Equestria has managed to completely master it. Even Star Swirl the Bearded didn't experiment with it too much, because he feared he might send himself to another world without a way to come back, explained Twilight. Does magic exist in your world, Tosui? Asked Twilight. No, replied Tosui. Then, how did you get here? Asked Twilight. I was chasing down a villain, and when I caught him with my tongue he grabbed it, and after that I found myself in the forest of your world, answered Tosui. All the ponies gave Tosui a confused look. A villain sent you to our world by grabbing your tongue? Asked Twilight. I think he has a quirk that allows him to teleport whomever he touches, explained Tosui. A quirk? Said Applejack in confusion. In my world we call superpowers quirks, said Tosui. You call superpowers quirks? That sounds kinda weird, commented Rainbow Dash before Twilight gave her another stern look. Rainbow Dash then gave a sheepish smile. Twilight placed her hoop on her chin and pondered for a bit. You say there's no magic in your world, and yet you were teleported here by a touch. Do you know how humans got their superpowers? Asked Twilight. There's a popular theory in my world that we got our powers because of evolution, answered Tosui. Evolution? I see, said Twilight before continuing to ponder. In our world, teleportation is done through magic, but if what you're saying is true, then it seems that teleportation in your world is done through biological means. Twilight, the timid Fluttershy, finally decided to speak. Does this mean that it's impossible to send Tosui back to her world because she came here through non-magical means? Asked Fluttershy. So I don't know, Fluttershy. And like I said earlier, interdimensional travel is very complicated even with the aid of magic. The fact that Tosui managed to get to our world through non-magical means makes the matter of sending her back home even more complicated than it already is, explained Twilight with just a hint of sorrow in her voice. Tosui simply remained silent while sitting on the bed and staring at the floor. Twilight wanted to say something that would somehow comfort Tosui, but before she could, a familiar voice caught the attention of the ponies in the room. Greetings, darlings, sorry for being late. I had to make sure that this attire would look absolutely fabulous on the creature. Oh, and I also remedied the creature's original turtleneck body side and made it look good as new, said Rarity as she trotted down the stairs towards her friends while levitating Tosui's original suit along with the red box that most likely contains the new attire. Rarity then gasped in shock once she saw Tosui. Oh. My. Goodness. Twilight, when I did part it with the creature's garments, you told me that you would groom her mane, said Rarity as she looked at Twilight with a pout. That I did, Rarity responded Twilight. No offense, darling, but you somehow made her mane a bit worse than when we first saw her, said Rarity before trotting closer to the invisible barrier. Please forgive my dear friend Twilight, Rarity gestured for Tosui to reveal her name. My name's Tosui Asui, said Tosui. Ooh, sounds lovely. As I was saying earlier, please forgive my friend Twilight. If you were under my care, I would have made sure to return your mane to its former glory, if not better, said Rarity. Tosui then ran her fingers through her long dark green hair. She's right, my hair does look and feel a bit shabby. I guess I didn't notice this because I was too focused on my current situation, thought Tosui. Speaking of former glory, I hope that this would be to your liking, said Rarity as she levitated Tosui's original garments in front of her. Tosui looked at her hero suit and it looked sublime. You fixed my outfit. Thanks, Rarity, said Tosui as she stood up. No need to thank me, dear Tosui. I make it my duty to create beautiful attires and to rectify ruined ones. Now please put it on, so that we can marvel at your new appearance, implored Rarity before trying to give Tosui her attire, but couldn't because of the invisible wall. Twilight, could you disable your invisible barrier spell? Said Rarity. Twilight gave Rarity's request some thought. Well, I guess it's safe to conclude that Tosui isn't a threat, said Twilight before disabling her barrier by a single blow from her horn. Rarity then immediately gave Tosui her original outfit and placed the red box next to the bed. Rarity looked at Tosui expectantly. Go on, dear Tosui. You may wear your improved attire, said Rarity. Tosui looked at her hero suit, then at her body which is covered by the bedsheet, and then finally she looked at the ponies. Could I get some privacy? Said Tosui. Rarity titled her head at Tosui's request. Is something wrong, dear? Asked Rarity. We humans don't like being naked in front of someone, said Tosui. It took the ponies a little while to comprehend what Tosui just said. Rarity was the first amongst them to blush in embarrassment. Oh my! Exclaimed Rarity. I mean, we simply did not know that your species are averse to ness. Please forgive us, dear Tosui. We shall give you all the privacy you need, won't we, Twilight? Said Rarity before looking at Twilight. Why? Yes, definitely, said Twilight with a sheepish smile before gesturing to her friends to leave the basement. All the ponies made their way upstairs and gave Tosui her desired privacy. Please do meet us upstairs once you're done, Tosui, said Rarity before joining her friends upstairs. Tosui looked at her hero suit and noticed how its colors looked more vibrant. These ponies are really kind, thought Tosui. I just hope I can find a way to get back home. Ribby, a few tears began to emerge from Tosui's